I think with everyone's patience that we can get through this meeting. And so those are just some opening comments I wanted to make before we start our meeting. And let's see, our first item of business is roll call. Jill?
Director Scobie?
Here.
Director Aston?
Here.
Director Carlson?
I'm here.
Director Wooten?
Here.
Director Morrison?
Here.
And we don't have a flag, and it'd be kind of difficult for us to all pledge allegiance at this time. So I've asked Eric if he'd be just kind enough to cite it for us, so that we can perhaps, you know, play along or listen along as he cites it. Eric? All
right. I can't do it sitting down, so I'm standing up, and I'm actually turning where I know there's a flag outside. So here we go. Let's salute and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you, Eric.
And thank you, Nikki.
Yeah, Nikki, that was great.
That was impressive.
Okay, our next item of business is the adoption of the agenda. And I would like to say a few comments here that we do have our ARC solar consultants on the call, and they are being paid by hour. So I would like to suggest to my fellow board members that we move item 7 before our approval of the consent agenda, so that we can conduct our business and then they can leave when we are done.
Item number 9.
Yes, so that would be.
Solar.
Oh, that's part of it.
Yes.
That was solar.
To suggest we move item 9. In fact, I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept the agenda with moving item 9 before the approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All right, we'll do a poll vote to make things more clear. Jill?
Director Scobie?
Aye.
Director Aston?
Aye.
Director Carlson?
Aye.
Director Wooten?
Aye.
Director Morrison?
Aye.
Okay. The agenda has been approved 5-0. So our next item of business would be, since we have no recognitions and presentations, our next item of business would be open forum for non-agenda items. Nikki, do we have anyone raising their hand?
No. No one's raising hand.
So, all right, seeing no speakers for our open forum, we will now move on to our next item of business, which would be item 9, approve authorization for a request for proposal for a solar energy project. Jill, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. So before I get started, I wanted to recognize that Russell and Simon from ARC Alternatives is with us this evening. So if you have any detailed questions for them, they're on the phone and able to participate with us. So I wanted to let you know that. Staff and the Solar Ad Hoc Committee are moving ahead, recommending that the board authorize the release of a request for proposal for a solar energy project and to seek out a builder. ARC Alternatives was on site in January and February. They pulled all of our energy bills and the data. They took a look at all of our locations, and they determined that the district would benefit from a solar project. financially. And so that's why we're requesting that we move ahead with this. The RFP is going to be for a design build concept. And what that means is that we're going to ask builders to recommend the details of the project and what that project looks like with the design, the size, and the details of the project, and then also build it. A lot of our request for proposals is for a specific project. For example, when we bid out the parking lot at Rasmussen Park that is undergoing construction right now, we had a very specific project. The parking lot was this big and we want it to look like this, and so it was a very specific project. This way, solar companies will come forward with what they think is going to be the best project for our district. Our district is in a kind of a medium-sized project, and so we are trying to do it this way so that we enhance competition. We are larger than a small residential project, but not a big commercial project. So since we're in that kind of medium ground, this way ARC is recommending we go this way because it will enhance the competitiveness of the project. I want everyone to know that the cost of developing this RFP and releasing it and is already included in ARC's contract. There's no additional financial commitment from the district at this time. What we will be doing, the next step for the board will be that the solar staff, the solar ad hoc committee, and ARC will go through a sorting and a selection process with the proposals that we get back. And then we will come forward and back to the board with a recommended project and a recommended financing structure. And that's my presentation.
Thank you, Jill. Eric, since you were on the solar committee, did you want to add anything to that before we open it up to the other directors to ask questions?
No, most of the information is in the report given. This is just the next natural step that since we've narrowed that down. It's worth recognizing, and I'm sure our gentleman from ARC can answer this. There is, as Jill said, some flexibility in the project proposal at this point, and we have general parameters. We're just looking for who can give us the best design. And there's time to make any adjustments along the way that we need to, but this is the right next step.
Thank you, Eric. Holly, do you have any questions regarding this proposal?
Why are you asking me that?
Oh, I was just going through all the directors. I was going to ask Felicity and then Ellie next as well.
I don't.
Felicity, do you have any questions or comments regarding this?
Ooh, so no, I just ask you, I apologize. If you could please, I think it was Jill, if you could please reiterate for me, because I didn't quite catch it. I think that the item before us does not include any additional budgetary expenditures. And I think you were saying that, so if you could please help me understand, it's a issuing an RFP, which doesn't cost anything. And that's part of the contract with ARC, is that right? So at this point, we're just proceeding, but we're not expending any additional funds. Is that right?
You are correct.
Okay, thank you. No, I mean, I'm really happy and excited that the numbers are panning out, and it looks like it makes sense for the district, and they've identified which buildings this should work for. And I'm hoping that given all the marketness that's going on, maybe we'll get better prices than we would have expected. So thank you for working on this, everybody.
Thank you, Felicity. Ellie, do you have any comments?
Now, I just want to clarify, this is going to be at the CSD and at Station 89, is that correct?
Those are the targeted locations right now. The maps that we showed indicate possible areas for those solar PD panels. I think that the specific project may come back a little bit different than what we're spelling out. So it'll depend upon what the builder comes back with. We are including the fire department in our conversations with this. And we've also included the library as well.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other public who has signed in at this time that'd like to bring it out to the public if there's any questions out there? Nikki, you seen any?
No.
Okay, well, then I guess, do we want to hear any presentation from Simon and Russell, or is the board satisfied with the report and the information provided?
I'm satisfied. I don't know about the other directors.
I'm satisfied. I'd be willing to make a motion. I don't feel like I need more information at this point.
Well,
I would second her motion.
Are you making the motion to approve let me go read it. The authorization.
Request for proposal.
For proposal?
Yeah, this is Felicity, and I move to approve moving a request for proposal. I hope I'm saying that right.
And this is Ellie. I would second that.
Okay, Jill, a poll vote, please.
Yeah, and let me just recapture for everyone's sake. It's approving the authorization for a request for a proposal for a solar energy project. So Director Scobie?
Yes.
Aye.
Director Aston?
Aye.
Director Carlson?
Aye.
Director Wooten?
Aye.
Director Morrison?
Aye.
Fantastic. So we have now approved the authorization for a request for proposal for a solar energy project. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Simon and Russell, for joining us. Sorry we weren't more exciting for you.
That's okay. Thank you, guys.
That's a good thing.
Thank you.
That's a
Thank
good
you.
thing.
Yeah, it is. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for keeping our spending in check here. Our next item of business is our approval of our consent agenda. And would somebody, fellow board member, like to make a comment or make a motion?
I'd like to move that we accept the consent agenda as written.
I'll second
I would
that.
like to second that motion. Oh,
Right, we have a motion by Eric and a second by Felicity. And a poll vote, please, Jill.
Director Scobie?
Aye.
Director Aston?
Aye.
Director Carlson?
Aye.
Director Wooten?
aye.
Director Morrison?
Aye.
That's a approval of our consent agenda 5-0. Moving on to our next item of business is our budget timeline. And let's see, are we, Jill, Vicky, one of you guys want to lead us through that, please?
I'll start off and then Vicky, chime in if I've forgotten something, okay?
All right.
So we're coming forward to you with a revised timeline and kind of our methodology for putting together fiscal year 2021 budget. First of all, I did omit from the report that I do want to say that the Budget and Admin Committee did review this and approved it moving to the board for consideration. We are regrettably about a month behind in our budget timeline. We were hopeful to have our first draft of the budget to the Budget and Admin Committee in April. And for obvious reasons, that didn't quite happen. And so our first draft of the budget will be going to the board in May. at that same time that we release the public document to the Budget and Admin Committee, and it becomes a public document, we will also make sure that the rest of all the board members have a copy of that so that they can start reviewing the document. Vicki is right now, luckily all the department budgets were put together, and so it's really a matter of Vicki putting together this district budget. And the board, it is scheduled right now to go to the Budget and Admin Committee in May, a second draft in the first part of June, and to the board in the latter part of June. So that the June board meeting will have a budget to you. And the staff have worked really hard over the last couple of years to really align those revenues and expenditures. I think there's been some very difficult budget cuts coming up, or that you've decided upon in the past. And so we are very hopeful that we're going to bring you a balanced budget. When we also come, it will not just be the general fund budget, but will be all those special funds and those reserves that we've been talking about. So there'll be budgets for all of those. So it'll be pretty big document that you all will be looking at. So, and just a little bit on our response to COVID. I think I talked to all of you about the mitigating steps that we're taking for our projected loss of revenue. Revenues from fees and services comprise about 15% of all of our revenues. Luckily for us, right now, we are not dependent on sales tax. So a lot of your cities and others that depend on sales tax are in a much different situation than we are. So we're not sure how this is going to affect property taxes in the future. It might if we have a recession, but for right now, we're taking those mitigating steps. They successfully registered us for FEMA reimbursement, not only for the fire department, but other expenses that we've had in communications, in the parks department, at the community center. So staff are furloughing. There's been some part-time staff that have been laid off. So we're hoping those mitigating steps will make up for at least some of our loss of revenue. And we'll have a better picture of that probably come this fall. So that's what that ends my presentation.
Jill, could you comment on the approach that we're taking on our budget this year, that we're not trying to second guess the impacts of COVID-19 when you're presenting?
Yeah, so yeah, we specifically won't be trying to project any loss of revenues due to COVID because we certainly don't know what those outcomes are. I think that we're taking a lot of mitigating steps to reduce our expenditures. And so hopefully that those mitigating steps that we're taking and reimbursement from FEMA will make up for at least some, if not most, of our losses.
Thank you. Let's see. Felicity, why don't you start? Do you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you. I thank staff and the budget committee for working on this. It sounds like the draft budget's going to be brought forward to the full committee. It sounds like I think a month earlier than it was last year. Is that right, Jill? Do you remember?
It was supposed to be brought forward in April. It was going to be a month earlier this year, but we're basically on last year's timeline now.
All right. Well, at least with all the work that you did, it's not behind. So I really appreciate all the work that's gone into that, especially with all the recent topsy-turviness of the world. And I appreciate the foresight of starting to proactively cut expenses in anticipation of decreased revenues. But it's unfortunate, and I'm sorry that part-time staff were let go. That is very unfortunate. And I'm just wondering if you happen to know off the top of your head about how many people that is?
They're either all of the part-time staff were affected. And I don't have, maybe Vicki has a number of part-time staff. All of the part-time staff were affected. Even Nikki is working reduced hours. Some
Yeah.
have no hours. Some are near zero. Things like in recreation, they might have worked last week, but they're not working this week. So
Okay.
Vicki, about how many part-time staff were affected?
About 6 or 7,
Okay.
8, 9,
Okay.
10. Again, as Jill said, the hours were reduced. Most of them to between, they're working between 5 and 10 hours a week. So what we've done is we've been able to transfer part-time staff into the LLADs to do LLAD projects. So they're no longer dependent on the general fund. But again, they've generally been reduced.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but I appreciate the district really using that word, pivoting so quickly. So thank you. Those are my only comments and questions.
Ellie, do you have any questions or comments regarding this item?
I have no questions, but I have to say a big thanks to our folks who are going part-time and reducing hours and never growling about it, and just as nice as could be. And I thank them.
Thank you, Ellie. Holly, any questions, comments?
No.
Okay, so it's the pleasure of the board.
Public comment, I think you have. public
Thank
comment.
you so much. Nikki, has anyone dialed in?
No.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no public comment, bringing it back to the board. Is there a motion?
A motion to approve the revised budget timeline and methodology.
Yes, please.
I would like to second that motion.
All right, a poll vote, please, Jill.
Director Scobie,
Aye.
Director Aston,
Aye.
Director Carlson,
Aye.
Director Wooten,
Aye.
Director Morrison.
Aye.
Okay, so our updated fiscal year 2020 budget timeline has been approved 5-0. Moving on to our
Thank
next.
you, everyone.
I'm just moving on through, Jill.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you, everyone.
Well, I think everyone recognizes the impact of this crisis. So our next item of business is our board informational items is number 10, items to and from. Let's go ahead and start with staff. And do you guys have anything you'd like and need to share with us?
I won't go over, I had a pretty long staff report and I kind of apologize for that, but hopefully that gave everybody a good understanding of what was happening. There is some updates from parks that I want to share with everyone. We've had a lot of problems with the skate park and youth gathering in the skate park. We have completed paperwork with the Sheriff's Department that will allow them to cite those youth for trespassing. And the Sheriff's Department has been very supportive of our efforts. So I think that we first really try to educate and encourage, and we had staff out there, we had private security going out there to move the staff out, or that move the youth out that were climbing the fence. But now we're going to take this more proactive enforcement side, and hopefully just by citing a couple of youth, that this will go away. Mike said that the skate park was very quiet today, so maybe word has gotten out. We do have had some recent budget impacts. We had a tree at Gateway, a very large tree that came down and took out another tree and is in somebody's backyard. We had to hire a arborist to come in or a tree company come in, staff were unable to remove it. So we've had that. There is no road base underneath the pavement at Rasmussen, whatever pavement was left at Rasmussen. So there's going to be a changeover there for about $5,000. The tree work is going to be about $5,000. And then if you haven't heard, there has been a very significant sinkhole, about 5 feet deep, 3 feet wide, out at Cameron Park Lake. And so that hole will be filled before this weekend. We consulted with El Dorado Irrigation District, an engineering firm, Stratus Environmental, and the county before we backfilled it, because we wanted to make sure that we were repairing it in the correct manner. So we vetted that. So those are all some things. I think that it'll mostly, all of those, because of our reductions that we're making for COVID, I think that this will be kind of captured within some of those savings that we were making, but just know that those things happened to us just in the last few days.
Mm.
Thank you, Jill. And let's go ahead and start with Ellie. Do you have any matters to and from?
No, I will say that I received a very large card today, and one sheet says, "Get ready, get set, go." And this is from the fire community, and it's really very nice. And if people will do what it says, it will work fine. But I'm just very pleased with what I'm seeing.
Yeah, could I comment on that?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Jed. Yeah, that was paid for through the CCI grant. So we sent out 7,500 of those mailers, little postcards with magnets attached to all the residents here in Cameron Park. So we're pretty excited about that. We've been putting that together for about the last 2 months. So we were happy to see that get out and go. And by next board meeting, just to update on the grant, I'm going to try to get an update out. So it'll be try and create a slideshow so we could all view it during the next board meeting and kind of let you know where we are on that process.
Oh, that would be nice.
Okay, Felicity?
And that's my comment.
Thank you, Ellie. Felicity, any matters to and from?
Just really briefly, I will say that shelter in place and trying to get out and do a walk every day, I realize how small Cameron Park is. I'm able to walk to one of friends' houses. Like, oh, you're really close. I didn't need, I mean, I'm not interacting with them. I'm just like waving from, several feet away, but it's just been kind of fun to really interact with Cameron Park on a very local level. But otherwise, I've been attending virtually meetings with the state treasurer and looking at, using that word again, pivoting state public finance for public infrastructure projects. And the credit markets are just crazy. They don't know if there's frozen credit or more money, probably less money. And it's, as you all know, it's construction workers are suddenly more available and less expensive than they used to be. And it's just a very dynamic time. It's not the sort of quiet, peaceful retreat time that I thought this was going to be. It's very, it's very intensive looking at all this. But anyway, I'm just enjoying being able to walk and bike around Cameron Park. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Felicity.
Excuse me, I forgot one question. Oops.
Go ahead, Ellie.
I saw the CSD Special District Legislative Days, and I wondered what time they were. They're for May 19th and May 20th.
Yeah, so Ellie, what we can do is, why doesn't Nikki or I follow up with you after this meeting? All those legislative days are going through your computer. So you are connecting through your computer.
Very fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to, let's see, Holly, matters to and from.
Nope.
And moving on to Eric, matters to and from.
Just a couple things. And part of it, just to thanks for the ongoing communication from our CSD staff. I've had a number of community members, knowing I'm on this board, asking questions, and it's just made it a lot easier to interact with community as I'm trying not to be out and about, but needing to at times. So that's made it really good. And on the skate park too, just want to thank Mike in particular. He's been really responsive and helpful, because I had both some community members asking, and I had been over there too, checking on that and inviting some young people to leave the premises. Mike has been really good in managing that and communicating, and I appreciate the progression that this has gone through. Try and make sure that we're making our facilities available as they can be to help the public in this time, but we're doing it appropriately. So that's been really good. That's it for my comments for now.
Thank you. And I want to thank the staff and my fellow board members for actually, everybody's here. We're getting our work done that we need to for our community, and all of you guys putting your community first. I want to actually thank sincerely our fire department, because you know, they're out there on the front lines and they're looking out after us, keeping us safe. And we couldn't do it without you. So I just want to salute everybody, and I want everyone to stay healthy and continue to follow our directives and lead by example. I had to turn down my niece's birthday party and not go. So I'm like, why are you inviting me to this? So anyway, I just wanted to thank everybody for making this happen. I really appreciate it. And it's very tough and trying for everyone. So thank you for that. Moving on to our next item, our LAFCO, Holly.
We were dark.
Okay. Moving on to our committee reports. And I want to thank staff for putting in the very generous reports. And I think it was actually kind of nice, because then I got to see them all. We want to, how do we want to do this? I suppose we could have Eric, you could report out for budget and admin.
I'll report budget and admin. A lot of what we did came forward to the board this time, so there's not as much to report there. A couple of details I did want to bring forward. The budget and admin committee meeting was our first full video conference meeting at the CSD. And all things considered, I think it went quite well. It ran a little longer than I think we wished, but some of that is just figuring out how to do this and efficiencies for it. And we'll aim to make that a little better next time. But I also wanted to thank Nikki for setting it up and helping to moderate that with me. It went really smoothly, not just for our first time, it went quite smoothly. We had one member of the community attend. Barbara Rogers was in on that. And so it became a really good practice run of going back and forth between public and board. She worked that process with us very well. I followed up with her later, and she was pleased with how it went, just on her end as a user, because I wanted to get that feedback from her, and she really liked how it went. So that was nice to hear. Just continue to encourage the board to be looking through those reports. This is kind of one of the really vital things right now, just in supporting our staff as they're trying to navigate this time and staffing and budgeting and expenditures and all. Last piece was just reporting in on waste management. They're going to be getting us some updated information regarding their proposed amendment to our agreement, specifically regarding the changes coming with California law around food waste. And so we've been waiting to hear from them. And we're looking at a meeting with them. Next week, was it, Joe?
21st.
Say that again?
April 21st.
So yes, the next week, to be able to get on that, it becomes a timely issue to make that amendment for us and for them. So that will be coming to you next month, hopefully. That's it for budget and admin, unless there's any questions.
Okay, thank you. Given that the other, all our other committees were canceled and we had a report out. I suppose we could ask, are there any questions that, I guess you went through that, Jill, with all the board members?
Yeah,
Uh,
but I would like to
I have something to say regarding fire and emergency.
Okay, Ellie, go ahead.
I received a call from one of the ladies who lived off Meter Road, and she was just, oh my God, what's going on? And it was because that was the time the Growlsburg group was working on that foot fuel break. And thanks to CAL FIRE, I was able to take the information about exactly what they were doing there and give it to this lady, which calmed her down immediately. And I really have to thank CAL FIRE for having that information available to me. That's all.
Thank you, Ellie.
Monique?
Jill, did you want to add something? Did I see you wanting to say something, Jill?
Oh, Jill. And then Eric. You want to go, Eric?
Well, I was just going to ask if we're not doing that. I'd like to just hear from Jed and or Sherry. Just a report in from them on how they and their staff are doing, since we don't get that from a committee meeting. I'd like them to fill us in.
That would be very good.
I'm going to let Chief Gaines report it.
Okay, yeah, so it's been interesting times around here. Since this started, we've had several policies and procedures come out and changing the way we do business with the amount of sick calls and medicals that we run. So it started in our command center up in Camino where the 911 calls come in. So they've had to triage the calls a little bit differently up there with a series of questions. And then when that comes out, when they meet that certain criteria, they advise the resources that are en route of, you know, a possible COVID patient and extra precautions need to be taken. And then so we have kind of what we call a little doorway triage. We send one person to the door before we go in and make contact with the patients. We try to get them outside to fresh air. We try to put N95 masks on the patients as soon as we can. We try to expose as little of our personnel as possible. You know, that's not always the case because a lot of times extra hands are needed inside these houses for the medical attention. So we've had several close calls that we've had to file exposure reports through our state reporting system, and then it gets run through our state doctor, who follows up with the hospital and the patient after the test, and we find out if that patient was tested positive with COVID or not. So it's been a lot of different times and trying paperwork just to stay ahead of the curve here and to keep our folks safe, but knock on wood, everybody here is doing good, and nobody in our department here is tested positive. So we're excited about that, but we are doing daily reporting. We want to know if anybody calls in sick within our whole unit. So there's been a lot of extra workload and paperwork and conference call after conference call. We've been involved in the El Dorado County EOC. I've been up there several days myself, and CAL FIRE's had a rep in there since that's opened up. So we have some kind of extended plans throughout the county, surge capacities with the hospitals, how we're going to upstaff more ambulances if we were to need them, depending on the call volume. But conveniently enough, the call volume in the county has dropped, and probably over the last month, the 911 calls have dropped by probably 30% in the county. Wow. So it's been kind of eerie slow, which is good because a lot of people aren't wanting to go to the hospitals. So it's been interesting though. And running low on some of the medical supplies. We're good still right now. We were able to order early and get ahead of the curve, but you know, if this continues, you know, in another month or so, it'll be another issue because everything's back ordered. So we've had to get creative on where we get our supplies, extra decon orders. We've gotten different decon chemicals we're using that we've never used before, but that have been approved for COVID. So yeah, it's been different. A lot of thinking outside the box here. So kind of challenging.
Wow.
Well, Chief, you better stay healthy because you got to be the first one to run up to our new training tower.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, yeah, and with all that, of course, all that stuff's kind of getting delayed. We're struggling with, the county building department on getting stuff because there's no meeting, so everything's kind of we drop off and then wait a few days, and then again, our new engine 88's been delayed as well. We just got confirmation on that last week that the delivery of that's going to be delayed just because of the factory where it's at has limited personnel where they're making it. So, yeah, it's kind of a whole chain reaction with everything going on.
I'm sorry.
Do they have a new delivery date, or is that just postponed indefinitely at this point?
They said 4 to 6 weeks longer than what it was. We were going to get it around mid-June, so now it's probably going to be more like mid-July is what they're saying.
Yes,
We were supposed to send a representative back this month for a final inspection, but obviously with the travel restrictions and all that, that's not happening. And then the factory itself is limited staff to accommodate that.
Okay.
Hmm.
One quick question, Jed. You had mentioned
Thank you, Chief.
staff getting tested for COVID after they've been potentially exposed. What is the return time on those test results at this point for you all?
Well, as you know, it changes weekly. The latest I've heard, the hospitals are getting tests back right now. The newest thing I just heard this week, within 15 to 20 minutes. So,
Great.
because it was several days. So like the guys transported a possible COVID patient just the other day to Mercy Folsom, and they were able to wait at the hospital and get the results before they left.
Good.
So that was good news. When this first started, it was anywhere from 3 to 4 to 5 days before we were getting results.
Good. I'm glad, because I was concerned how that might affect your staffing if you had to pull some people offline.
Yeah, no, that's been a big concern because, if we had to put a whole shift down, 2 or 4 people, that would be a big hit for us. So, we've kind of talked on a backup plan and how we do that and how we'd quarantine. And right now, CAL FIRE has a couple of stations that aren't open in the county, so we just haven't staffed for peak staffing. So our unit has a plan to house our folks there if need be, if they don't want to go home and expose their families. So we do have options, and we've been kind of planning that since this whole thing kind of kicked off.
Okay. Nice. Thank you. Appreciate all that info.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, any other, I guess we don't really have report out on the other committees since we didn't have any, and reports are
I do
attached.
have, for Parks and Rec, I just want everyone to know, and I think that Ellie and Felicity know, that Mike and our contracted landscape architect did go out and do a park tour. And so we will be having a draft park improvement plan coming forward to the Parks and Rec Committee in May.
Great, thank you. Well, do we want to do a formal motion to adjourn?
Should.
Sure.
I move to adjourn.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right. And we'll vote there, please. Jill?
Director Scobie,
Aye.
Director Aston,
Aye.
Director Carlson,
Aye.
Director Luton,
Aye.
Director Morrison.
Aye.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Monique.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Good night.